This is the Illinois we know and love, Cart. Drama has resurfaced. I'm very excited for this. Shout out to the Rocks energy drink again. We've done a lot of Illinois content. We've kind of just been waiting. We've been talking about we've been waiting for things to happen. We've been waiting for Illinois to be themselves. The Real Housewives of Champaign. It's been a quiet mid-season finale until now. Now it's back with a vengeance, Car. This was a great episode last night. Ty Rodgers is doing a press tour telling people his ex-teammates were horrible people and that he's the point guard on this team. We both love Ty Rodgers. So there's a lot of ways
say that last part again.
He's the point guard on this team.
No, say the part about us loving Ty Rodgers.
We both love Ty Rodgers.
Because I feel like that was kind of lost in translation in the last couple videos. Like people were like, "Oh, you don't believe in Ty Rodgers." I think you're talking to right now like the founders of like the Ty Rodgers like fan club. Like I don't mean to put ourselves above the Illini Nation, but we knew about Ty Rodgers before y'all knew about Ty Rodgers. All right, let's let that be known very quickly. My old assistant coach in college was Ty Rodgers' coach, high school coach. Knew him his whole life or whatever for his first couple years in high school, and he's been telling me about Ty Rodgers. So I just want that to be known. Biggest Ty Rodgers fan out there, but please continue.
Yeah, when I coached high school basketball here in Michigan, Ty Rodgers was courtside at a couple of my games, and I always thought it was very cool that Ty Rodgers was right there because I'm like, oh, that's Ty Rodgers. I love Ty Rodgers. I wanted him at Michigan. You wanted him at Michigan State. He ended up at Illinois. We have been rooting for Illinois because of a lot of reasons, but Ty Rodgers is one of them. We really like the kid. I would like it more if Ty Rodgers was playing a natural position next year than point guard, personally. I know he has point guard skills. He's not a point guard. Like I love you, Carter. I absolutely love you. I wouldn't expect you to have to produce and edit these episodes we do every week. I just wouldn't do that. I want you in the role that you are, and you can shine.
I'm so happy that went in that direction because I literally thought I was about to get some slander about my guard skills. I literally thought that's where that was going.
I'm probably going to slander for joking purposes later in the episode. I have a note on something to do here, but yeah, and he's not a point guard. Why do we have to pretend he's a point guard? Because there's no point guard. That's what's happening here. The more interesting part of this drama, though, Cart, is that Ty Rodgers is just shitting on the guys that left this team. And let me start by saying this. It's honest. It's refreshing to hear honesty like that. It was a little shocking for me to hear the words, we had some bad people. I mean, that is the quote. That is airing out dirty laundry. That is whatever you want to call it. It can be true. It can be accurate. But I think it's pretty crazy that a current college player at Illinois is doing that when there's only 4 guys that left this program. I mean, Sky Clark's gone. Jaden Epps is gone. RJ Melendez is gone. Matthew Meyer is gone. And now the funny part of this quote is that you don't know who he's talking about, but it could apply to almost all of them there. So what do you make of this? Because I really do have some pretty complex thoughts with this. I'm shocked that he said this. Do you think it's good? Do you love this? Do you think this was a mistake?
I'm probably going to go flip-flop back and forth on this because I think it's more of a personal thing about how the person feels. So how Ty wants to be, like you said, upfront, forward, refreshing. That's all good and well. But me personally, I'm putting myself in his shoes. What does that necessarily do? I like to think of myself as a person who thinks of what are the outcomes of this? What are the positives and negatives, things like that? What positive outcomes really come from throwing these guys technically under the bus or basically, I guess the term for it is I'm not a fan of shitting on people when they're out the door. Kyle Neptune shitting on Cam Whitmore as he's out the door. Shitting on these guys that left the program. Yeah, maybe they were bad people. Maybe you weren't, and maybe they did affect things. Everyone in the program probably knows that. Why does everyone else have to know that? And I think you made a good point. I think it was your tweet that said this. It's just it's a pattern now. Every single year, guys leave and they get shitted on the way out the door. And you establishing a culture. I know culture is the buzzword for college basketball teams. Right now, Illinois' culture, if you really want to boil it down to what it is, it's players come in, players leave, players that leave get shit on once they leave.
Simple as that.
And that's not the case with a lot of programs. This seems to be kind of an Illinois thing. I can't really think off the top of my head in another case where players leave and the players that are still on the team are shitting on the players that left.
Yeah, I associate Illinois basketball right now with talent, drama, chaos, and around a 32 exit. That is, and beating Michigan. You can throw that in there. They beat me every single time. Daddy Brad, shout out him. But like, this is why it's my favorite program to cover, because it's constant content, it's constant chaos, it's constant controversy, it's constant talent. They're always talented. They're always a good basketball team. They're never a great basketball team, other than the Io and Kofi year. That was a great basketball team, and they had a really good year with Kofi and Plummer and Trent Frazier. Like, obviously, Brad's been capable of putting together championship teams here. It usually, since that group, it has come with drama. And last year, the Kofi stuff, I want to speak on this because I sort of alluded to this on Twitter last night, and I think a lot of people think I'm wrong here in how I'm framing this. We had Coleman Hawkins on our show. You can go back and watch it. We had Coleman Hawkins on the show last summer after Kofi departed. And he said plainly, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have the exact quote, but you can go back and watch it. He said very plainly, we were limited by a lot of things because of Kofi Coburn. Those limitations are gone now. Like, it was not a framing of words that I did. That's what we were told from Coleman, a player on Illinois. And Coleman to me is an extension of Brad. Like, obviously he's his own person, but there are a lot of guys on this Illinois roster, I think, that, say things publicly. Ty Rodgers is now one of them, that you can tell it's very clearly coming from the top. Like, one of Brad's biggest strengths as a coach is he sells his locker room on whatever his vision is, right? The everyday guys thing. And then last year, it was very clear that the staff was telling this team, oh, we're going to take a step forward without Kofi. Kofi's one of the greatest players in program history. Didn't really work out that they took a step forward.
Which honestly, not a bad angle in theory.
Yeah, the angle
like as a coach, like that'd be the thing I'd say. Like, don't dwell on the fact we just lost an All-American. Think about the fact that we're like open to do stuff now. Like, I respect that angle.
The angle was there. It didn't work out that way. Yeah. The positionless basketball thing ended up not working. We saw their season almost pretty much come to an end when, they played Penn State in the Big Ten tournament. And you and I sat and said, Penn State's just the tougher team. I mean, Seth Lundy was hitting these dudes in the face, and Illinois was just kind of stepping aside, like, all right, here, take it. And then they went to the press conference and blamed the officials and called it booty ball. Like, it's always something with this group. And now you turn the page forward again, you get these guys out, you get Matthew Meyer out. Okay, was Matthew Meyer crazy? Yeah, he was crazy. He's a weird guy. We know that. He had a caffeine overdose in a conference race. Jaden Epps, I seem to like Jaden Epps a lot more than other people do. At a certain point, it became Epps versus Sky Clark, and then it became Epps versus everybody. And people now seem to think it's a good thing that Epps is gone. There are a lot of rumors of things that happened with Sky Clark. If you believe them, he's rumored to be a very toxic presence in the Illinois locker room. He's gone. RJ Melendez, I don't think this applies to. Maybe. I don't know. It seems like Illinois will blame everybody at this point. The point is, I don't get what benefit does this have for Ty Rodgers to say this, even if it's true. Like,
that's what it is for me.
And now it seems like a lot of Illinois fans are like, hell yeah, our culture's back because Ty Rodgers is saying this. No, this act, going on a podcast and shitting on players who just left the program, is the exact behavior that is the toxicity that now makes Illinois' locker room what it has been these last few years.
Does drama not stress you out?
Stressing me out.
There's so many things that come with stressing being a college basketball player. The fact that if you want to reduce stress as much as you can, whether it be on the court, off the court, in any facet of life, you want to decrease the stress. Right now, like, if you're a player coming in and looking at this Illinois program, it's drama. It's always something. Like, you know how like people make excuses and stuff like that, and you're always like, oh, it's always something with that kid. It's always something. Well, right now with Illinois' program, it's always something.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I'm not saying Ty Rodgers is wrong.
No, like you said, I respect it.
He can feel that way. I'm not saying it's
Yeah,
inaccurate. I bet a lot of guys in that locker room feel that way. And maybe the guys in that locker room love that Ty Rodgers did this. It's a fork in the ground moment. Ty's clearly asserting himself as a leader. And it's a, hey, I'm not unafraid to say this. Or I am unafraid to say this. But Card, it's pretty wild to me. A guy that averaged 3 points a game last year is the one saying this, right? Like, does
yeah.
that matter to you at all? I get he's projected in a big role. He's the point guard now. He averaged 3 points a game last year, and he's shitting on guys. Like,
I mean, but at the same time, like somebody's got some. I mean, leadership.
if this comes from Coleman, we talk about it and we shrug it off and say, "Oh, that's Coleman. He's one of the best players on this team, and Coleman's always been this guy." But like, that's also why Coleman has the scouting report of like he's a pretty crazy, unpredictable guy. Like Ty Rodgers was supposed to be consummate teammate leader. Maybe you can say he's being that for the guys in this locker room, but like, do consummate teammate leaders turn their back on ex-teammates from 2 months ago? Like,
that sometimes.
I don't know, man. It's crazy to me. Do you buy that he's the point guard? I mean, he's saying he's the point guard, and we talked about how Brad's probably going to rock with this group. Do you buy that?
I mean, I gotta buy it, but this is where I'm coming from on it. It's like Ty Rodgers is, to me, he's a college small forward that has the ability to also, maybe bring the ball up, maybe take a couple point guard possessions away from an actual point guard. It's like he would look good in a couple of point guard roles. And, honestly, I don't doubt that Ty Rodgers, if Ty Rodgers somehow does turn into like this very serviceable, let's say even good Big Ten point guard, I would honestly not be surprised. But that's more so me just speaking to how highly I think of like Ty Rodgers' actual like work ethic and basketball knowledge. But at the same time, like, I don't know if this is necessarily putting Ty Rodgers in the best position to succeed. I think his best position to succeed is playing like that 3-man role who can also do a little bit of everything and even bring the ball up in some situations. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of other teams that have been successful in like taking a guy who was not a point guard and like putting him in a large point guard role, and it's turned out well. And I'm not really thinking of anything off the top of my head that comes to mind.
So I got the Ty Rodgers comp, but the team, it doesn't make sense when you apply it to Illinois. The Ty Rodgers comp for me is Nogel Eastern. He was a really, really impactful defender at Purdue, one of the best defenders in the Big Ten, if not the best defender in the Big Ten. He was a guy that for years it was like, ooh, can he be our point guard? Like maybe he can be like an All-American level, like big point guard. That never really came together. And he had some opportunities to do it. He was always a starter level guy. He was best served as a sixth man kind of jack of all trades guy. And he really worked because he was playing next to Carson Edwards, who he's not a point guard, but he's a guard who can have the ball in his hands constantly and be an engine of an offense. Illinois doesn't have an engine of an offense right now, unless you buy Terrence Shannon as that, which for a year, I guess, could work maybe. But Terrence is just a little more like get downhill bully ball guy, Now
I might have to workshop some Gibbs Lawhorn is going to end up being Carson Edwards takes.
Hey, that would be on brand for you. Man, I missed this. This is definitely a Real Housewives-y move. My last point on this, check me on this, please. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. I want people to be very careful thinking that because they get better people in the locker room, that means they're going to be a better team than last year. Part of that is because I think Illinois was pretty good last year. I don't think Illinois was bad. They were a lock NCAA tournament team. In my opinion, they were the third or fourth best team in the Big Ten. And I mean, their highs were high, right? That game against Texas where they won in Madison Square Garden was incredible. That team was there, even with all the quote unquote toxic guys. That was what that team was capable of. Like removing talented guys who were they toxic? Yeah, but removing talented guys, replacing them with Justin Harmon and Marcus Damask. And I guess Ty Rodgers. Like, I like Ty Rodgers, but I would be careful being like, we got the bad guys out. We got good people in, and now we're going to be a 30-win team. Like,
Yeah, there's a reason like when you type in someone's name and pull up like ESPN stats, it doesn't say anything about them being good guys or bad guys. The stats are there. The wins are there.
You think Kansas cares that Hunter Dickinson ain't the best guy?
No.
I don't think so. Maybe Michigan did last year, but that's why this Ty Rodgers quote reeks of Will Shedder saying they're restoring the culture.
Okay, that's where I cut you off. We're not going to do that.
What I mean, Ty Rodgers is a better player, but is that not in line? Like Will Cheddar was very public in we're going to restore the culture because Hunter Dickinson was a bad guy and he's out. I'd much rather have Hunter Dickinson being a horrible person in a Michigan uniform than Will Cheddar. Like,
okay, yeah, that makes a point. Last thing I'm going to say on this is it's going to be special that first game against Eastern Illinois when Ty Rodgers is flirting with a triple double, and all I see is like, tell me this isn't Ty Rodgers, and it's like a picture of Ben Simmons like on Twitter. It's gonna be cinema.
that would be nice. Open door to any Illinois players that want to come set the story straight here. We know we've had Coleman on before. Maybe we should try and get Coleman back on.
Only if you're a good guy though.
I everyday good guys.
Everyday good guys.
Everyday good guys. I am working on a Illinois player guest, a former Illinois player. I'll leave it at that. I'll tell you after we wrap this. But I
don't even know about this.
I have a very real path, and I'll just say the player is one of the players that Ty was talking about. I think we can get him on, and I think we can have him set the record straight. So I saw text messages last night. Somebody sent him my tweet. A friend of mine sent this player my tweet. And I saw this player's response, and he said, "It's me!" with a bunch of exclamation points. So he knows Ty's talking about it. We'll see if we can get him on in a couple weeks. Illinois fans, feel free to speculate who I'm talking about in the comments section. So shout out Illinois, ILL.
You might be a bad guy for not disclosing this information until just now. This happened yesterday?
Last night. I figured you were asleep.
Oh, okay.